What's up, guys? Adrian Vasquez here from Balanced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, here with Elvis Chen. All right, so today we're going to be doing a positional study from a side control when you're on bottom and your opponent's on top. So there's a lot of common things that people make mistakes on, and there's a lot of things that maybe we can go over that are gonna help you escape the side control a little bit more efficiently. Okay, so I think the most important thing to understand when you're in side control is the concepts. Okay, so before my opponent gets on top, right, when we're already trapped in a full side control, we've already made a lot of mistakes to allow our opponent into that position. So understanding that, right, it's gonna happen, especially at the lower belts, white, blue belt, you're gonna find yourselves in a lot of bad positions. So the first thing that whenever somebody's on top, okay, the first thing that you have to understand here is A, I let my opponent control my head, and B, I already let him inside of my elbow knee space. Okay, so talking about that concept a little bit, the elbow knee space. If my opponent is able to get inside of my elbow and knee, he's gonna control the fight. He's gonna control me, okay? Especially if he has that space with head control, okay? When I'm trapped in bottom side control, my opponent is mostly controlling me here through this area right up top, like my head, my shoulder, okay? His ability to apply pressure with his shoulder on my face is what's gonna make me feel a lot of pressure, and it's gonna make me feel trapped. So we need to organize our frames and shields in such a way to where we can get our head out and free first, okay? I know traditional ways we're taught to get our frames in and then start hip escaping and things like that, right? But I tend to focus on freeing my head first because that's gonna free up my hips and everything else. Okay, so the first thing typically that we go for when someone is in a side control, okay, I don't wanna hug my opponent. Okay, that's a big mistake a lot of people make when they're starting jiu-jitsu is they hug. Okay, if I hug my opponent, it's gonna help him apply pressure. It's gonna make him feel heavier. Okay, what I need to do here is I need to start creating space and pushing. Okay, so first thing with my feet, I like to keep my knee up nice and high. And if I can't just keep my knee floating, I'll rest my foot on my knee here. I keep this like this because I don't want to keep the space between my elbow and knee so open. Okay, that invites him to start putting his knee on my belly or even taking a full mount. Okay, so I like to get used to keeping my knee up here and staying in the side control while still trying to block the space. I like to keep my knee in contact with his hip here or his side. Okay, we're gonna use this later to move his body. Okay, first thing I always look for is my frames. Okay, my first frame, the arm that's closest to his hip, I'm just gonna bring my elbow inside and start bringing my wrist bone to his hip bone. Okay, remember not to put the hand. If you put the hand with the elbow bent, he can switch his hip and can damage your wrist. If he's far away, I can stretch my arm, that's okay. But if he's in close, I don't wanna be resting in this manner here so he can just switch his hip and hurt my wrist, okay? So I always put wrist bone on the hip bone, so if he were to switch his hip, my arm just falls down, okay? So super important, okay? Bringing that wrist bone to the hip bone, okay? And then now I gotta get my second frame in, okay? So from here, I'm gonna retract my elbow and circle my wrist and cup the shoulder here. Now I have my forearm underneath his throat, so if he does decide to apply pressure, it's gonna apply pressure to his throat. Okay, be very careful here not to go over and get your elbow trapped. Now I'm in a side choke, and be very careful not to go over this way and set yourself up for an Americano. Okay, so from here I retract my elbow, circle, and grab the gi here. So now I have my frames in place. Okay, now a lot of times the way I was taught in the beginning too is to start bridging, right? Bridge off 2 feet. And then start hip escaping. Okay, I feel the issue with this here when you're rolling is he still has control of my head. So even if he's putting a lot of pressure and smashing here with his head, okay, it's gonna be very difficult for me to bridge and start moving my hips. Even if I do move my hips, I can't turn on my side because he's controlling my neck. So the direction of my body is being controlled. So from here, I work on getting my head free. And by getting my head free, I mean just dropping my head down. I want to be a little bit lower, like in his chest area, so he doesn't have such a good grip on my head. Okay, so with these grips here, and with my foot on my knee. I like to use my opposite foot to kind of bridge here. See, I bridge, and my knee pressed against his rib is gonna help drive him up over me, okay? At the same time, I open my elbow, okay, to help direct his head over me. And at the same time as doing all this, I drop my body downward. So I shrug my shoulders, and I kind of hide myself underneath my opponent here. So now my opponent is over me. He no longer has control of my head. Okay, and now from here, all of my escape options are available. It's easy for me to go underhook. It's also easier for me to bring my knee shield inside. Okay, and from here, okay, if you were to transition to the other side, right, I still have both knees up. I can bring both my knees up now to defend. Okay, if he still has my head, it makes all of these movements difficult. Okay, so if he still has my head and I try to hip escape, it's gonna make it very difficult. It's gonna feel like I'm stuck. Okay, if I try to go for an underhook here, there's a lot of friction. Okay, a lot of friction. And now if he transitions to the other side here, it's harder for me to recover because I'm still being smashed to the ground. Okay, so the single most important concept here, I believe, after getting your frames, right, is I need to free my head so that I can put my strongest frame in, which is my knee shield. Okay, if we're looking to replace the guard, we put our knee shield in. If I'm looking for maybe like a reversal or a sweep, I might look for my underhook. Okay, so the first escape we're going to do here is like the traditional guard replacement, but with this guard replacement, we're going to free the head first. Okay, so I'm getting my first frame in, I'm circling my hand, okay, and then now look from here. I'm going to bridge, open my elbow, and bring my head down. And then now from here, you can paddle your free leg while getting your knee across, or you can use your foot on the mat. I like to paddle my leg because I feel like it gives me a better momentum as I try to replace. So from here, I kick my leg and I try to bring my shin and my knee all the way across his body, replacing my hand on his hip. Okay, so I'll paddle, paddle, paddle. And now look, my shin is all the way across with my foot on the opposite hip. I still have my frame, and now I can start hooking that arm, okay, to take away his ability to be able to push my knee down. Okay, so as I hook that arm, okay, now from here, I need to extend my hip and extend my body so that I can free my leg. See, so I attack that arm, now my leg can come out free, and I replace the guard. Common mistake people make here too. Okay, after I have my frames and I escape, okay, I paddle my leg in. Once I have this knee here, a lot of times people stay crunched and they try to replace the guard from here. Okay, once I get my knee shield across his body, I need to extend my hip and square my body up. So now I'm looking at my partner straight on. Now there's more distance. He's no longer on the side of me. Okay, as I hook this arm, it makes my leg easier to pull out. Okay, if I stay in crunch, it's almost gonna feel impossible to get my leg out. Okay guys, so a second option here that we can do, instead of looking for our guard replacement, is we can get an underhook with the arm that's closest to the head. Okay, the arm that's closest to the hip is gonna stay on the hip. Okay, we're gonna work our same escape, but now instead of replacing my knee shield, I'm gonna get my underhook. Okay, we can also use the knee shield with the underhook as well. It just depends on what you want to go for in that particular time. So from here, circle. Look, I'm bridging off one foot and my knee is pushing his side. So it's actually pushing his weight above me. I always want to imagine that I'm getting the person's weight over me, right? Don't feel tempted here to push them. If I push into him, he's going to use his legs to push back. Okay? And now here I'm just bench pressing. So if I bench press, I'm only going to be able to bench press, you know, for a minute or so. If I'm wasting a ton of energy, it's not going to be efficient for me. So I don't ever want to push. I want to use my hips to free myself, okay? So I use my legs here and my hips to off balance my opponent. So right from here, I bridge, I open my elbow, I bring my head down, and now look, I can bring my knee in as I circle for my underhook. And now with this underhook here, it gives me a lot of control. It's almost impossible for my opponent to flatten me out. If he tries to flatten me out, I can always just keep coming out of the side, right? See how he's hugging my head here? I can always come up to my elbow, okay? If the person doesn't whizzer, I can come out the back, okay? So from here, first elbow, got my frame, I'm gonna bridge. Okay, look, my knee comes up, I drop my head, I get my underhook here, okay? And now look, from here, if my opponent's not careful, I'm gonna use the momentum of this leg to help pop up to my knees, okay? I can either go out the back or I can come up on a single leg. Come up on a single leg here, or if he's not careful, I can come all the way out to the back, and now I can get my seatbelt here. All right, guys, so that was just a quick side control positional study, okay? Remember to keep those concepts in mind when you're trapped underneath in side control. Make sure that you're trying to free your head, okay? So we're trying to use all of our body, use our frames and our shield, as well as our foot on the ground to try to bridge and bring our opponent above us, right? So that we free the control from the head. That's the most important thing. I feel like once you can free the head and take away that control, your opponent's gonna have a hard time trying to either transition or trying to maintain that control. All right, so try it out, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Close.